We are incredibly excited to get version 5.7 in your hands. We've been working on it hard all year long, and it has some great enhancements that we can't wait for you to try. There are software functionality in there, making it easier to get data into the software. There's a lot of fantastic new data visualization capabilities. There's audit functionality where you can look at an organization or a user and make sure they've got the correct permissions. There's software functionality that touches literally every single area in the application. I am not going to have time to go over every single enhancement in detail here. I'm just going to give you a quick summary of the enhancements and move on. So buckle up, let's get started. This is, first we're going to focus on the application-wide settings, the things that touch every single area in the application. One of the most notable is that Spider Impact 5.7 now has full support for right-to-left languages like Arabic. And this is a big deal because we're growing pretty quickly in the Middle East area, and this allows folks who have their browsers set for right to left languages to be able to experience Spider Impact in its full power, where the information, instead of having the navigation on the left and the display information on the right, it's the navigation is on the right and the display information is on the left. And literally it touches every single screen in the software. Dialogues are set up correctly for that language. If you are a customer that uses Arabic, please let us know how this works. We've tested this extensively in beta testing, and we're very excited for you to use it. Speaking of people using our software differently, we realize that not everybody uses standard balanced scorecard language or standard KPI language. Every organization tracks their performance a little bit differently, and many organizations have different names for what they call things. So built into Spider Impact 5.7 now has the ability to change what you call scorecard items or initiative items. In this particular example, perspective is what you would call the high-level grouping for balanced scorecard key performance area. We suggest names that are common, but you can go in there and you can change it to be whatever you want. So in this particular situation, we're going to refer to a perspective as a grouping, and we're going to refer to plural perspectives as groupings. And what does this actually look like in the software? Where the whole thing's transparent to the user. So when you go in and we're going to create a new scorecard item, in the listing, it just says grouping with the triangle icon. And so you can go in and configure Spider Impact very easily to match whatever you call each of the scorecard initiative items. Do you call them tasks? Do you call them actions, etc.? The scorecard overview is something that you could configure in the past one item at a time. Yeah, I could edit that historical performance chart, right? You can set the individual description. You can change the chart to be a bar chart or whatever. But now you can go into application administration and change what the default scorecard overview looks like. So in this particular situation, we're going to turn the description off. We're going to say, let's see a bar chart. No, we don't want background thresholds for colors, and we're going to show a whole bunch of data 25 periods earlier. And so when we actually go to the scorecard section, we see that every single scorecard item now it doesn't have a description, and it shows a couple of years worth of bar chart data. You can now upload a custom logo, and this is pretty interesting in the software. So by default, you're going to see the Spider Impact logo, but here I've got this fake logo for my company, and it's going to upload the logo here. And another setting that kind of goes hand in hand with this is a custom email signature. So in all the emails that you send out, you can now put a little signature on the bottom. In this example, hey, go to support.com for our support site or whatever you want to type. So now when you log into the software, it's going to look like this. It's going to put your company's logo right there when you log into Spider Impact. And when you get an email from Spider Impact, it's going to put your company's logo at the top, and it's going to put your custom email signature here at the bottom. As you can see, if you need help, please see our support site. You're going to see a whole bunch of configuration settings that I'm going to talk through today, and there's actually some configuration settings that didn't make the cut. Visit our website at spiderstrategies.com. We have a full document covering, it's 90-some pages covering literally every single enhancement in the software. Again, I'm just going through the greatest hits today. We've reorganized the application administration section to better reflect the new configuration settings we've got to make a perfect home for everything. So this is what the application administration section looks like now. Some of the settings, there's new panels in there. Some of the settings have been reordered. Spider Impact is constantly evolving software. It's growing, And now we've got the application administration section set up to get ready for the next round of growth. There is a new aggregation type. This affects many different screens in the application, so from reports to dashboards to charts. List unique value is a aggregation type that aggregates text. In the past, if I wanted to aggregate text, I could only count the number of unique values. Now you can list the unique values, which is pretty helpful in a lot of situations. Here's a dashboard. I've got a single value widget that is showing me an aggregation of all of the records. There's 826 sales this represents. Of the 826 sales, there are 2 unique values for the sales department, retail and corporate. So instead of aggregating it to be, hey, there's 2 sales here or 2 unique departments here, it just lists the unique departments. There's retail and corporate. And when I filter, I'm going to filter on Holly. Well, Holly's part of the corporate sales. And so when I filter records for just her sales, it's going to change the sales department. The only unique value for all of the sales is the Department of Corporate. And of course, this shows up everywhere in the software. So here's a report that I'm running or a dataset table or whatever you want. And instead of age at the time of incident, it's a number. You can aggregate these things with unique values too. In the past, you could say the average age, or if it wasn't very useful, the sum of all ages. And in this situation, we're aggregating a number with the list unique values. So I can see, okay, for pay grade C2, the age at the time of incident is 21, 20, 19, and 18. All right, so this type of data visualization thing, there's a theme here, right? Is we are making it better and better, just chipping away at functionality to be able to better visualize your data in the software. This is another incremental enhancement. When we have this conditional coloring, where you break up your coloring into different ranges, when you choose few colors, it's going to pick the lowest value as the lightest color, the highest value is the darkest color, and then based on the number of segments you have, it's going to fill in the segments in the middle, right? And that's perfect for situations like this when you want to show extremes. If there's just 3 colors, I want to show a really light blue and a really dark blue with, whatever shades of blue in the middle. Well, that works great in all situations except for scoring. And with scoring, you actually want the predefined spider impact scores to show up, which is what happens now. If on the left here you see, that's what it used to be, a really dark red and a really dark green with a yellow in the middle. On the right-hand side is what it looks like now. If you just have 2 colors, it's going to show you the standard red and the standard green. If you have 3 colors, the standard red and green with a yellow in the middle. 4 colors, there's an orange. 5 colors, there's a light red and a light green. So as you can see, when there's 5 or fewer colors, it's going to use the standard spider impact colors. And when you have more than 6, it's going to be just the same as before because you are going to want all those different gradients across the wide color spectrum. For dashboards, we've got a lot of great new enhancements. This is the one enhancement that I'm going to take my time and talk through because it is arguably the most important enhancement going into the software. And so I'm going to take a little bit longer with this one than everything else. And this is the new shape widget. It's a lot like PowerPoint shapes. It allows you to add all this great library of shapes to your dashboard. We went through all the shapes that PowerPoint had, all the shapes that Apple's Keynote had, and we picked the ones that we thought were going to work best with Spider Impact, and we think you're going to be pretty happy with them too. So the way you add these shapes to the dashboard is just like anything else. You just click on them, it adds them, and you can quickly add as many shape widgets to the dashboard as you want. We're going to add 4 shapes. And we're also going to add a line widget. Line widgets are just like shapes. You can add them to dashboards and manipulate them. You can drag them around. These shape widgets are not exactly like a traditional shape widget because you can configure them settings within the widgets themselves. So here we're adjusting the box or the arrow width, height, or whatever, right? You can configure these things, the corner radius, right? You can rotate them. There's setting, it's just not like a piece of clip art you drop on a dashboard. You can configure individual attributes within the shape. For lines, they're really helpful for dividing your dashboard into sections. They're really helpful, these shape widgets, for showing flows of information. Here's a strategy map, but this is a shape widget we added behind 2 objective bubbles, and it shows the flow of information up your dashboard. They can be used for layout like this. In this aviation or this travel, there's a translucent box, right, that we put behind. That's a shape widget. These shape widgets can have numbers on them. We'll talk about that in a second, where you can show flows of data from one thing to another, or you can have, whatever type of infographic style designs, they're super helpful. What you've got here is the full power of PowerPoint inside of a live dynamic dashboard in Spider Impact. Let's look through some configuration settings and how you can change these things. There's all kinds of formatting options. You've got solid, none, or gradient for the fill. Here's what a solid blue looks like. Here's what it looks like when you turn off the fill to none. We're going to use gradient for now. You can change the fill color. You can pick whatever color you want out of the Spider Impact colors. These are colors that we picked out from very intentionally so they all look good together. You can pick whatever you want. This is what a yellow shape would look like. You notice the yellow gradient looks really nice. It's hard to create a shape that looks bad. You can go in and you can change the outline thickness, just like PowerPoint. By default, it's 2, but you can make the line quite a bit thicker. You can turn it off altogether for the outline. We're going to use an outline of 2. It looks great with these dashboards. You can change the outline color. By default, it's going to do a darker version of your fill, just to keep things easy. If you notice, when we switched from blue to yellow, the outline changed with it. But you can override that. You can pick whatever outline you want. You can make the outline black, or you can make the outline red like this. We'll set it back to its default that just matches the background. You can change the shape opacity. Again, you saw those background circles or its rounded rectangles where they had objects inside of them. It's really great to be able to add translucent objects to dashboards. You can see the different things showing through. But what these shapes really, when they're really powerful, is when you start showing information on them. So you can choose specific text, just like in PowerPoint. You can type text in, and the text is going to show up. You can format this text however you want, right? So we're going to change the font size, make it something a little bit larger. The text size automatically wraps within your shape. So as you resize your shape, it's going to, wrap to new lines. Again, just like a lot of your favorite presentation software. You can set alignment. So hey, I want this text left aligned, right aligned. You can do bold, italic, underlined, all kinds of standard formatting options for however you want your text to show up on your shape. And when you rotate these shapes, the text snaps to 90-degree increments to make it easier, because some of these arrows, you might want an arrow pointing to the right or an arrow pointing to the left, and it's going to automatically snap to 90 degrees. But there are situations where you actually might want your text to be upside down. Pretty uncommon, but you're definitely situations where you want your text going up or down. And so in that situation, you can override the text rotation and change it to be 0, 90, 180, 90-degree increments. You can force it. Again, most of the time, auto is what you're going to want. Where these widgets really become powerful, though, is when you start wiring them up to data. You can make these widgets show dynamic information based on underlying data in the software, right? Scorecards, initiatives, datasets. Let's take a look. So you pick which item type you want. In this situation, we're going to choose the financial perspective, and we'll click done, and it's just threw the score in for the financial perspective. Now, obviously, we can do better than this. So we're going to go in, and you can make that font a little bit larger, but we're actually going to say, instead of showing the score, let's choose another field. Let's choose the name, the description, the period, the color, the weight, right? We're going to choose the name. We want this shape to have the name of the perspective on it. And let's bump up that font size. And we can show additional information from the data source. So we're going to go in and we're going to change its color. And its fill color can either be the score color or conditional color, right? We talked about conditional colors. You can do these to the shapes. Score color is great for scorecard items because they're going to have a score based on their performance. And so now we know that this financial perspective is red, and it's going to automatically update that shape based on the period's performance. If you notice, we've taken this shape and we've wired it up to a scorecard item. We can wire it up to whatever we want. We've wired up to a scorecard item and have its color automatically update based on this performance. That's an awful lot like our traditional performance bubbles for scorecards. And that's right. So you can, behind the scenes, all of these shape widgets are actually the same thing as the scorecard performance bubble or the initiative bubble or the dataset single value widget. Behind the scenes, they're all the same widgets and they're just configured differently, and we have them added to the add widget menu for ease of use. So if I want, that's one way to do things. I could add a shape widget and then set its color to pull from a scorecard item, and you can go the long way. Or the short way is I just go to the scorecards, scorecard bubble, choose financial, and add. And it adds a scorecard bubble just for financial. And then if I want to change it to any shape I want, no problem. Change it to shape and pick this cylinder. And all of a sudden I've got the exact same thing. Now, again, there's configuration options for, it looks like that's a bold font. It looks like the font's a little smaller. It looks like the trend arrow's turned on. But all these widgets are exactly the same. It's just that they're different items in the menu, that it's a shortcut based on the data source. Okay, back to the original widget. We're changing the data source to a data set. And I'm going to show you here, we're going to pull device sales and we're going to do the number of sales from a data set. I'm going to show you how this thing is actually a single value widget as well. So now I'm showing the number of sales. There were 42,000 sales in this particular data set. And I'm going to change the color. Oh, first of all, yeah, we want to turn a label on, right? Number of sales. So you can turn a label on. Yep, number of sales is 41,000. And we're going to change the background color. We're going to change the fill color to, conditional coloring. And we're going to say, hey, if you're at 0, you're going to be this really light color. It's a heat map style. If you're at 50,000, you're this dark purple. So your value of 41,000 is going to be some shade of purple. And again, this is based on the values in your data set. This shape is automatically going to change color. There's further configuration options. We can change the fill to none, completely turn off the shape itself. And now all of a sudden, that color formatting that we're talking about, it applies to the text. So now we've got this big, bold number, the number of sales, and it's going to automatically adjust. If we had a scoring range, it would say, red, yellow, or green based on the values of this thing. So this is a great way to visualize your data on a dashboard. If you notice, we started with a shape widget. We've kind of gone away from the shape widget, and we're starting to now get into the data set single value widgets, because again, this stuff is all the same behind the scenes. It's all one widget that shows a single value or a single shape or a single color or some combination of those. So let's further configure this thing. We're going to turn the background on, turn it to solid. And if you notice, this is very similar to our traditional data set value widget. We're going to add the number of sales. That's a shortcut to get us there. Again, we tweak the font size, we tweak the coloring or anything like that, but it's the exact same thing, right? Because behind the scenes it's the same stuff. All right, let's further configure this thing. We're going to set the text color again by default, or we're going to turn, we're going to set the text color by default. It was that black when you add it in, so we can show black color. But in this situation, we're going to force the text color to be red, and we're going to turn off the background. And we're going to turn off the title, and all of a sudden we have this number that's always red that shows a single data set value. Why is that valuable? Because you're able to make infographics like this. Now, this is an old COVID-19 dashboard, but it shows you perfectly the types of infographics you can now make with this new single value widget. Mission assignments, 64, assessments completed, 1,147. These are all numbers that you add to a dashboard. That 64 is always going to be red. That the completed assessments is always going to be white, but that number automatically adjusts based on the values in your data sets. You can make these live updating infographics that look like this. The ability to change data behind things, we've got these performance bubbles that can now show data from anything. It applies to every single widget on your dashboard. So now you've got these linear gauges, you've got these speedometers. They can pull data from initiatives, they can pull data from scorecards, or they can pull data from data sets. In this situation, I'm pulling from a data set value, and I'm using conditional coloring just like everything else. And again, these widgets, in the Add Widget menu, we've got convenient methods for adding them. So if I want to add a scorecard, choose the speedometer, choose my scorecard item, done. If I want to add a data set, choose a speedometer, choose which data set field, hit done, right? So it's super quick, regardless of your data source, to add these different speedometers and linear gauges to your dashboards. This applies to literally every single dashboard widget. So here is a notes widget. We can choose to set the data source. I can pick a scorecard. I can pick an initiatives. But just as importantly, I can pick none. And I can create a dashboard that's not wired up to any data. And I say, hey, I want 3 speedometers here. I want notes here. I want my company logo here. And I can copy and paste that. I can create a little library, an organization, which is a library of dashboard templates. And I can paste that to various people. And when they want to create a dashboard, they just go in there and wire it up to live data. Pretty helpful. So it's the same thing with the images. You can put a placeholder images, and you can say, hey, I'd like to upload a new image to replace this one. I'd like to choose a shared image. There's a lot of new data visualization options for charts. This one is going to be very popular. This has been a popular request over the years. You're able to go in and put charted values directly on line charts. This is matching how we can do in bar charts in the past. You can see your actual values right there on your line charts. Similarly, you can go in and you can say, I'd like to show data series names. And so you can show your data series. You don't need a legend. It puts the data series directly at the far right-hand side of your line chart. And it's just a great new way to visualize data. For reports, we now have the ability to show related items for scorecard reports. And this is huge for balanced scorecard customers, because what you're able to do is a lot of balanced scorecard customers will add an initiative as a related item to an objective. And so I could write an objective report and I say, hey, show me all the objectives broken down by perspective for this particular organization, and I can include the related items column, and I can now see, okay, here are the initiatives associated with those particular objectives, and again, I can click through and drill into the initiatives to see more information. We've also put full opacity, full color brightness behind report cells. And the reason why is in the last software release, we changed the report cells to be much more readable. And so we put white text on dark colors and dark text on light colors, so there's a higher contrast, and that's automatically done. Well, now that you can add these performance bubbles and shape widgets that automatically light up with dataset values, we wanted to be able to match the report backgrounds to the backgrounds of these new shapes. And so as you can see on the right-hand side, this is the new appearance. We've got these bright, vibrant colors for the backgrounds of reports. On the initiative section, we didn't leave that out either. There's a new configuration option for yellow initiatives. By default, if you're $1 over budget or 1 day late in your initiative, you would turn red. Well, now there's a little bit of a grace period. If you're over budget, but still within 10%, you're yellow. Or if I'm late on my schedule, but still within 10%, or whatever percent you want, you're yellow. And so what this looks like in actual practice is, hey, I'm a little bit over budget, but not too bad. I've got a yellow color. Now the software works as before for combining colors, so it takes the worst of the schedule or cost to make the overall initiative color. So if I've got a red and a green, I'm going to get a red score. If I've got a yellow and a red combining, I'm getting red. If I got 2 yellows, I'm yellow. For forms, forms is the benefit of one of the largest groups of enhancements. We're finding incredible uptake. A lot of people are using forms for pulling data into the software for things like surveys or managing items. There's a new widget called the dataset widget. I'm sorry, the dashboard widget that allows you to display information in forms. And so traditionally, if I wanted a header on my form, I would use a text widget like this. I say, hey, welcome to the Spider Strategies Employee Satisfaction Survey. And that works fine, but you can't really get too fancy with just blue text at the top of your form. And so now we can add this brand new widget called the dashboard widget. And what that does is it creates a form widget that is a dashboard and has the full power of dashboards embedded into your forms. So you can have any type of widget showing any live data. You can do the new shape widgets. You can do whatever you want. In this example, I'm going to add a text widget to recreate what I had before for my form header and say, yep, this is the employee satisfaction survey, and put the blue text. But I can also add things like a dataset speedometer. Now, in this particular example, I'm going to be showing the average score of the employee satisfaction survey. So I take the survey and I'm going to be this is the results of the survey. This is a silly example, but that needle is going to automatically adjust when I submit my results. So the next person who fills out this form, that needle is going to be pointing a little bit differently based on how I fill out the results. And you can add a logo like your company logo here. Literally anything you can do on a dashboard. We're taking advantage of the brand new line widget, and we're going to add a divider between widgets. And this is what it looks like. You can drag it to the very top, and we're going to save it, and we're going to go view this form, and that's what it looks like, right? You can imagine what it would be looking like showing real live data rather than a silly speedometer. That's what we'll cover in the next example. So there are 2 different types of forms that are pretty popular. Obviously, you can use forms for anything. We've found that there are 2 use cases. The first is a simple survey where someone goes through and it's on rails, right? You answer the first question, second question, third question, you hit submit, it records your data, you're done. The second type of form that has been really popular is an object tracking form. And that's really great for whatever you want. I've got a hardware spreadsheet that I keep track on my desktop to keep my company's, my laptops that I buy. Well, it's a perfect candidate for creating a data set in Spider Impact and then creating a form for managing a hardware. So the first page of the form lists all the hardware, and I can click on any of the laptops I've listed there to show its details and to see who's currently has it and see its specs. Or there's a button there to create a new laptop that I just bought, and I could fill it out and assign it to whomever I want, right? So there's 2 pages in the form, the first page that lists all the items, and then the second page with details. Well, this is that kind of form. This is a customer management form. The first one lists all my customers. The second page lists all the customer details, but I've got a little mini dashboard on top that lists all of the sales for all of the customers. So for all customers, there's 40,000 sales over time. And you can see that little chart, my sales have increased over time. But what I don't really want to show all sales for all customers, I really just want to show the sales for the customer that's currently selected. So what I can do is I can go in and edit this dashboard, and I can set a filter. And I can filter it to match any value for the particular form that I'm filling out. In this situation, I'm going to match it to the customer ID field. So whatever I select in the customer ID dropdown, regardless of whether it's hidden or not, it's going to show information for that. So here is my customer management form. I'm going to click on Abby Melito, and it's going to say, oh, Abby had 2 sales total over time, and there's a sale over here in October and one later on. Or I can go back and I can click on a different Abby. This is Abby Miranda, and I can see Abby Miranda had 6 sales over time. Again, kind of a silly example, but you can see how incredibly powerful this would be for forms where I could have lists of employees, lists of customers, or whatever, and as I'm filling out their details, I can have summary visualization using the full power of Spider Impact dashboards within that form itself. There's also additional enhancements making forms a lot easier to use. I think this is called a Likert scale, where you have, incredibly satisfied all the way to, not satisfied at all. These things in the past, you would have to choose a number, and you'd have to have a legend: 1 strongly agree, 2 disagree, etc. You would need that because you want to be able to compress all the answers down into an aggregated information. So my score is an average of 3.2 for this particular field I'm measuring, right? And so if you wanted to be able to average something down, you had to have someone add in a number. Well, that's no longer the case in version 5.7. You now have the ability to label individual values. So someone picks one value and a different value is recorded. So here, a value of 1 is going to be strongly disagree, and value of 2 is disagree, etc. And so now when we save this and we go back to the form itself, you don't need that legend anymore. We can delete that, because if I can see myself working here in 5 years, oh, disagree. But if I select that, it's going to save a value of 2 to the data set. There's a lot more in forms. I'm going to go through some of these items pretty quickly. You can now set a field value to a specific value. So for example, if it says, what's your sales department? I choose sales, and then they could pre-fill the manager name to DZMBA, or I pre-fill, software development is my department. It could pre-fill Matt Scarlatta to the software developer manager, or whatever, right? You can set, based on the values of one field, you can set the values to another field. But that's not it. You can also say, I want to make a field value blank, or I want to set a field to the current date and time. That is super helpful, because you can say, when someone hits submit on a form, I can know exactly when they submitted it. Or even more sneaky, I could say, when someone first displays a form, when you start filling out the form on page display, record a time that says form start. And then when they hit the submit button, when they're done, record a second field value, says form end. And then you have a calculated data set field that says, take the time at the end, subtract the time at the beginning, and that's how many minutes it took them to fill out the form. And so there's a lot of great things you can do with this. You can also record information about the user who's filling out the form itself. You can say, you don't have to have them type their name or their email or their username or their ID. You can say, just record the user's name who is filling this out as this field, just secretly behind the scenes, so they don't have to type that in. Or you can have on page display, welcome employee name. On page display, you can grab their current name and set it to a field value, so you can welcome them at the top of a form. And finally, you can record their IP address. You can know where this user is coming from. You can send an alert based on different form actions. So on someone submits a form, I could say, hey, you have a new response to the customer satisfaction survey. And it's going to go to the entire marketing team as well as Marsha. And it's going to send it out as a standard Spider Impact alert. You can change the appearance on form buttons. So traditionally, all the buttons were the same color. Well, now you can say, actually, I want the save button to be blue, the primary color, and I want the cancel button, less attention to that. I want to make that one white. There is the new concept of navigation tabs. Forms are really good in the past for walking you through a standard performance or a standard path. But what happens if you want to be able to jump back and forth between different sections of a form? That's what navigation tabs are for. So in this particular example, I've got a starting menu, and then I have navigation tabs, and underneath navigation tabs are the point of contact and company details. And so let's see, the point of contact form is their email, it's their last name, first name, etc. Company details is a page that has information about their company, right? All of these things are information about a customer, but we split it up between two tabs. So when we use this form, I click to the View tab, same as before, right? I got my View tab, and I could pick which customer I want, and I hit Edit Customer. It's going to go to a page, but if that page is inside of a tab group, it looks like this. Now I've got the point of contact, I've got company details. And so I can jump right between the two and fill out different information. We are building Spider Impact forms to be able to create little mini applications, and this is the next step in that journey. There's a lot of enhancements we added with recordless widgets, just for strict usability. The action button is now on the left instead of the right, so if you have a lot of columns, no problem. You'll see that edit button on the far left, and then you can scroll right to see your additional fields, rather than scrolling right to hit the edit button. The column widths now automatically adjust based on their content. The height of the record widget automatically adjusts to fill whatever room you have on your screen. So if you have an incredibly large monitor, you'll see 30 records rather than 10. For data sets, there's a lot of great enhancements. I told you this thing's going to touch every single area in the software. It's a big software release. You can create calculated fields based on any data set. So in the past, if I wanted to do a data set calculation, I would have to say this column from the source data minus this column from the source data. Well, now you can still reference source data, but you can also say, I'd like to take this manual field that I created and add it to this field from the source data. Or I'd like to have this calculated field subtracted from this manually added field. So you can have calculations that reference other calculations, nested calculations that have one field going into another field. So just dramatically expanded the ability to create calculated data set fields. There are new filters for data cleaning. So in the past, we have filters and you can say, hey, take this field, it's coming in, it is a field that is a social security number, let's say, or a date of birth or whatever. It shouldn't have letters in it. So strip out all the letters, strip out all the spaces. It's good for data cleaning, right? If anything comes in and there's a space or a blank or an enter or whatever, rip that out, just keep the numbers, right? So we already have data cleaning transformations for that. But these new data quality filters are pretty handy because you can use them to correct your data in the system of record. And here's how that works. There are 4 new filters. Is it a date? Is it not a date? Is it a number? Is it not a number? And so based on those, I could say, there's a date coming in. It's the date of service start, let's say. And if someone wrote the word Thanksgiving for the date of service start, that's not super helpful, right? That's not a valid date. And the software will ignore that and say the date's blank coming in. But with this new transformation, you could create a new manual field and you could say invalid date of service start. And then if the date of service is not a date, set the invalid value to whatever it is, and then move on with your day. And then you can write a report once the whole thing's done, and you could say, show me all the records that have a value for invalid date of service start. And you've got your 15 records here, all of the records that don't have a valid date. And you can say, every single Friday, send that report to my system administrator, and they can go back in and clean up the records in the system of records. So next time that data comes to Spider Impact, it's clean. All right, I promise you we're almost wrapping up. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a new filter called record is editable, and this is super valuable for a specific situation. If I have permission because data sets have complex permission structures, and if I'm in one group and that group has permission to see every single record, and I'm in another group and that group only has permission to see West Coast records, where the region is West Coast, but I am allowed to edit those records. That means I can see all the records, but I can only edit some of them. When I have a filter that says only show me the records that are editable, it's incredibly helpful for dataset record lists, because I can say only show me the records that are editable, and then instead of showing me 10,000 records in this list, it's going to show me the 14 that I actually have permissions to do something about, and so I can just see the records that I can change. There's another filter called record is edited, and that is the sibling filter to the existing record is added filter, and those are handy for keeping track of data that is supplementing an existing import. So if I've got my HR records coming in, but I'm not tracking my interns in my HR system, I'm manually adding those, or I'm overriding someone because their name was misspelled, I can run a quick report and say, hey, show me all of the last names that are overridden. Again, these are the 4 records where I changed the spelling of a last name, so I can send those back to the system of records so they can get their data updated, or show me all the records that were manually added just to make sure the interns are still in the system. So as you can see, we're finding more and more people using data sets in interesting ways, and the software is just becoming more and more robust to be able to handle all these interesting situations. I talked about this earlier, right? You subtract one date for another. It's incredibly common. Start date, end date, take the start date, subtract it from the end date. You can see how many days they were active. That's really popular, but up until this version, you could not mix date and date time. So if my start date was an actual date and my end date was a date and time, you couldn't do subtraction between the two. And now you can. So you can say, it's a fractional day. They worked here for 14.2 days or something like that. The permissions audit, we talked a little bit about permissions earlier, but this is, we're starting to really drill into the software being able to be used by thousands of people. So we have organizations with tens of thousands of people using our software. And in that situation, it's a really good idea, even if you don't have that many users, it's a good idea to be able to see what everybody can view and how they got the permission to do that. And so there's now 3 screens in administration where you can do a permissions audit. So in the organization's permissions audit, here we've selected an organization, and we can see every single person who can view this organization, how they got that permission, and what they can do in that organization when they're viewing it. It's a comprehensive view of an entire organization and everybody who can view it. There's the exact same thing, but turned on its head. You can say, pick this particular user, James Wilson. What is everything that James Wilson can do, how James got permission to do it, and what James has permission to do. So you can look at a user and see their entire permissions in the software. And the very final piece of this is you can look at an advanced permissions data set, and you can say, okay, here's all the people that can see this data set. Here's how they got the permission. Here's their permissions filter. They can only see records matching this. And here's what you can do to those records. All of these things can be exported, so you can schedule repeating or download a PDF right away. And you could have, again, every quarter, your system administrator could get this report in their inbox saying, here's everything, this is a particular user report, but they might want an organization report. Show me every single user who can access our financial data and make sure that that is correct. Do a manual inspection once a quarter. These permissions audits are linked throughout the software. So when I'm editing a user, there's a button to run a permissions audit. When I'm editing an organization, there's a button to run a permissions audit. And when I'm editing a data set, same thing, right at the top, I can run a data set permissions audit on that data set. For scorecards, there's a new functionality that came out last software release, where you could optionally turn on the ability to do KPI approval. So if I've got a low-level employee typing in KPI values, and I'm the owner of those KPIs, when I log in and go to the home section, I can say, oh, there's 9 KPI approvals waiting to be approved. My low-level data entry people don't have the ability to update permanent data in the software, I need to review all the data first and make sure it's right. And so there's tools within this to make sure that I'm looking at the right thing. Okay, I can hover over that tree and I can see, okay, training venue costs, that's in financial profit and loss, and then cost of sales. Okay, I know where that thing is. Or I can, mouse over the info. Yeah, I know the KPI value is changing from blank to 150,000, but oh, I see here the red flag threshold is 150,000, right? And so you can see more information about the KPIs. If you want to approve some values, you can approve a few, you can reject a few. You can also select everything on the top. But one thing that didn't exist until just now in version 5.7 is when there are KPIs that rely on these KPI values, you are completely in the dark to see what is the results of these calculations. Because these KPIs might be high-level, important KPIs. They might be very low-level metrics that just kind of feed into calculations. And what you really care about is 3 calculations later by the time these things roll up to high-level values. So there's now a button on the corner of the screen next to save called preview results. And what you do is you say, I would like to approve this one, reject this one, leave this one alone, right? You set it how you would like to see your data. And you say, if I were to make this change, let's click preview results. And what happens is it goes in the background and does all the calculations and says, okay, as a result of approving all these KPIs, this is going to be the result. There will be 2 KPIs that are calculated based on the values of these. And the top one's pretty simple. It's product revenue. Is your product revenue update is affecting this other monthly product revenue KPI. But in this situation, this total costs, which is located in financial profit and loss, cost of sale, total costs, that is being affected by these 3 pending updates. So there's 3 updates on the bottom. It takes all that stuff and adds it together and says these 3 updates are affecting this total cost. And you can see there that there's a little note bubble where you can click on it and get information about what's going on. And you can get the full picture about what's going on behind your KPI updates before you approve them. I told you there's a lot. There's even more. Please visit us on our website at spiderstrategies.com. We've got videos. We've put together a comprehensive user guide. We've updated all of our online documentation. We cannot wait for you to try out version 5.7. If you've got any questions or you just want to get using the software today, reach out to us and send an email to support@spiderstrategies.com. Thank you.